Welcome to the MSDW podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at msdynamicsworld.com. On this episode, I welcome John Macdonald, Group CSO and Regional President for North America at ExpandIT. This episode is sponsored by the field service experts at ExpandIT, and John and I discuss the types of deployments and business outcomes his clients are seeking today when it comes to field service. As you'll hear, John brings a unique perspective to the conversation. Before joining ExpandIT, he held roles at Navision and Microsoft, so he's quite familiar with the challenges of the ERP-focused partner. We discussed some of his recent conversations with customers about their urgent field service needs, how ERP continues to shape field service deployments, what today's prospects look like, and what executives expect out of their field service investments. All right. Well, John Macdonald, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. Can we start by just learning a little bit more about you, your work history perhaps, and your company?
Sure, be my pleasure. So, I've been working in the kind of the Microsoft Dynamics software ecosystem for well over 20 years. Started my career in software with a company called Navision Software.
Yeah, a lot of our listeners will be familiar.
Yeah, over 20 years ago, and spent well over 10 years when they came to North America working with that product and working with channel partners. Spent a lot of time working with the channel ecosystem and developing that out, and got a chance to meet a lot of amazing entrepreneurs as they were building their businesses. And then I transitioned over to Microsoft. So I spent then 8 to 10 years with Microsoft, working both with Microsoft Dynamics and with Microsoft independent software vendors, like what ExpandIT is today. And then I guess I got drawn by the entrepreneurial urge to do something, and I joined 10 years ago ExpandIT, and ExpandIT is Microsoft Gold certified ISV that's been building products for Microsoft Dynamics for a long time, and so that's what I've been doing. So we have a team based in Toronto that supports the North American business, although we got kind of staff across North America. We also have offices in 5 other locations in Denmark, Germany, and Spain, supporting those local areas as well with sales, marketing support, channel development support, customer support, and local development. So that's a little bit about us. We've over these 20 plus years, we've acquired about 4,000 customers that have a mobile workforce. That's the problem that we solve. So I guess that's kind of a high level overview of myself and ExpandIT.
Excellent. Well, yeah, the topic of improving the way a mobile workforce works it's one of those topics that to me is such a clear, value add that if you can, because almost everybody understands what a bad, service experience is like with someone coming to your place of work or even your home to do work, and whether that's a smooth or a rough experience, but it just keeps evolving too. And that's what I'm excited to get into here with you. So you mentioned, 4,000 or so customers. What kind of companies are those? Is there a sort of a range of different types of businesses that really benefit from ExpandIT software, from improving the way their service teams work?
Well, first I'd say is that it's fairly broad. It's, think about it broadly as any organization that has field-based personnel. They could be, for instance, a manufacturer that creates and builds something and then has to go out and install it, that product or that machine in the field. They might then also have to do service on that product they build themselves. Then it could also be a more traditional field service type of an operation where they're going out and doing that kind of break fix on products or and providing services. Or it could be a combination of both. We also see a lot of customers that are actually just outperforming a service on something. So maybe they're not fixing something, but they're performing a type of service. And a great example would be, we have a customer that has vets and vet technicians. So that's often not thought of as a field services company, but they're out performing a service. So the reality is our customers tend to be pretty broad. However, we see a lot of manufacturers, because a lot of manufacturers now have to, as I mentioned, have to do installations of their product, and they're seeing the ability to provide after-sales service and support, not only as a growth business for them, and a profitable growth business, but their customers are looking for that. So we're seeing a lot of that today. And then there's your traditional services-based companies. I mean, somebody mentioned to me last week, in North America, there's over 150,000 HVAC companies. So this is a big market. And that's just one very specific type of a services type provider. So the market's broad, and that's what makes it interesting for us. We see a lot of very interesting businesses that are looking to kind of simplify their field operations. And that's kind of really our value proposition, is we want to help those owners simplify their business operations. And irrespective of kind of their specific industry, that's the pain that we hear from our customers. And, if I could, maybe I'll just give you a quick story, if that's okay. I actually fielded a call on a Friday afternoon about 2 months ago. The way our phone system works is if it's late in the day, it kind of goes into a pool, and whoever picks it up. If it's coming in for support or for a sales inquiry. So it was, I don't know, around 6:30 on a Friday, and I happened to see the call come in, and I picked it up, and it was a guy pretty exasperated. He was a bit frustrated. I could tell he identified himself as the CEO of a company that makes cranes and hoist lift systems. And basically he's told me, "Oh, I'm so happy. I got through to somebody," and he said, "I've been very frustrated all week." The story was, and this is a common story for us, is that his business is it's growing. Things really starting to pick up after the pandemic. His customers are super busy and asking a lot from him. His customers, he's adding new customers. His business is growing. He says, I haven't been able to call you yet because I've been on a treadmill all week, just trying to keep up with the growth of my business, trying to hire new service technicians and service our customers. And he says, I'm looking for a solution that can help me sleep at night. I want to grow my business, but it's really difficult. He was telling me how, it's very challenging to grow your services organization. Hiring and training and onboarding new people and providing great service is what was keeping him up at night. So his vision, his pain is, I want to onboard, more services people to delight and service my customers without adding, a significant or incremental, or maybe it's just too much, what he called administrative burden or administrative costs. So that was what was keeping him up at night. Growth, but needed to be able to grow his services organization without increasing costs too dramatically, so he can remain profitable and provide great service. But then his real frustration is, I need something now. He said, you know what? He's like, I looked at some other systems, some other offerings, and they were really complicated. He was told that it was going to be, 6-month implementation, all kinds of modifications, all those things that are risky, right? Introduce technology risk. So he said, I'm looking for something that I can get using fast. And that was what I was able to do. I said, well, that's one of our value propositions is when I talked to him a little bit and saw that we were a fit, I was able to help him see that it would be possible for us to help him simplify his field operations, and we could do it in under 6 weeks. So, that is the one common theme. You asked me about our customers. They're broad, but that's the type of phone calls we get.
Can we talk a little bit more about maybe what some of the as-is situations are in particular? Are there particular, characteristics or patterns of behavior, patterns of working that you see in some of these organizations before they work with you? Like, are they, transitioning from do they have a field service, maybe an older legacy type of system that they rely on? Or are a lot of them just really doing everything manually with whiteboards and spreadsheets and in email? Or can you elaborate on maybe some of those characteristics you see or you're kind of checking for when you're engaging with someone?
Sure. And we always ask that too. I know my sales team, we always ask that when we're qualifying or talking to an inquiry. We always ask them kind of what they're doing today, how they're doing it. And so we have a pretty good sense that I'd say about 80% of inquiries or customers or prospects are really using manual process. So it's processes some of the things that you talked about. They're using, email or to take inbound inquiries, using a whiteboard sometimes to schedule their field team to go out and do installations or service, or some cases using Excel, right, to create a dispatch kind of board, if you will. And then we're seeing in the field, we're seeing a lot of customers use paper forms still. again, 80% still using these very kind of manual tools, paper to collect, the amount of time that they spend working, or if they're filling in, documents. And frequently, because just the nature of the work, the field workers just want to get their work done and they want to move on to the next job. So that's where a lot of errors happen, where things are not captured accurately in the field. Their mistakes are made. They miss capturing all the parts that they use. So if they capture it right, what happens is, so then they'll often drop these paper documents off, maybe at the end of the week if they're lucky. And then someone in the office will try to key those paper reports from the field into some sort of an accounting system. Mistakes are frequently made there. They can't, the documents are incorrect, they're incomplete, things are filled out incorrectly. Then an invoice might get sent out for the work, maybe a month later, and there's frequently mistakes or errors, so those things have to get corrected. So what we see is a major problem, again, for that owner-operator, is that they're doing the work and they're not able to effectively bill for an invoice or get paid for it, sometimes for 90, 120 days. So, that's the pain point, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So 80% of them are using manual systems. And I think you can imagine they're fraught with errors, right? And then I'd say 20% customers, they are coming from something. Maybe they've made an investment in a homegrown system or in a lower end app. You see a lot of those out today. The problem is the combination of those solutions, they're not integrated to the Microsoft Dynamics ERP. So you still have the same problems. They might do a better job, maybe, of capturing some of the data electronically when you're out in the field, but that is not making its way back into the ERP system quickly for verification, for approvals, and ultimately for invoicing. That's what we see kind of being used today.
All right. Yeah. I wanted to ask about maybe any particular characteristics of Dynamics ERP customers that you work with. You mentioned perhaps a lower end system, if any. Are there other, characteristics of what like Dynamics? I don't know if you want to pick a particular product like Business Central or something, but particular ways that Dynamics customers are dealing with field service when you first encounter them, either on the financial side or with financial management or any other operational elements.
I'd say for many of these customers, this is, probably, not the first investment in technology. They've probably gone through a couple of accounting system or financial system investments. So, customers that have moved to Microsoft Dynamics, whether it's, Business Central or GP or whatever it might be, they've been through a couple of accounting ERP cycles. So they've learned that, these sort of systems, they do a really good job of kind of tracking structured data. They're good for invoicing, their accounts receivables, account payable. That's what they rely on it for. They've also, I think, recognized that they're not ideal for doing things like detailed scheduling of a resource, visual planning, visual scheduling. What they've recognized is that they have different types of users that are either planners or schedulers that don't need to be in the accounting system or the ERP system all day long. In fact, that's really not even the right solution for them. They're not creating invoices. They're not creating financial statements. So we've recognized, or these customers have recognized, that they've got some very specific types of workers, planners or schedulers or service managers in the office that need a tool for them that's really designed for them, that's visual, that's graphical, that's easy for them to use, to schedule the work and kind of get that right worker to the right job with the right tools and equipment as fast as possible. So they've recognized that. We've seen that. And then the other recognition that we've seen is these customers of Microsoft Dynamics ERP, they also have acknowledged that their field workers, the people in the field, the technicians, again, an ERP product or an accounting system does not really serve them. They need a very specific type of a solution that allows them to capture time, materials, to be able to replace paper with on-site digital reports, whether they're capturing compliance reports or whatever it might be. It needs to be easy to use. It needs to be accessible on a form factor or device that works for them. So that's the other thing that we've seen, is that they've got these two types of users: the schedulers, the dispatchers, the administrators in the office, and the field workers, that are looking for really a different experience that needs to be easy to use and really needs to be tailored to the type of work that they're doing. So that's probably the biggest thing that we see when we're meeting with Microsoft Dynamics ERP customers.
I guess one other angle or wrinkle that information makes me think of is sort of the role of how these companies are being advised, or what leads them to look forward. I mean, we talked about some of the pain points that are very obvious that an executive might be feeling, but when an organization is sort of planning the future of their own ERP, do you get a sense from your perspective as an ISV role, are partners also like system integrator partners or VAR partners for Dynamics scenario, are they helping guide their customers to sort of identify where some of those shortcomings are? Or do you feel like, in the example you gave, that customers are really feeling it sort of directly and viscerally and then reaching out, with this need that's very, very urgent and causing them to lose sleep?
I see both. I mean, so for sure, customers are feeling a real pain. So this is something that creates immense pain for the end customers. So they're not shy in looking for solutions. They are actively looking for a solution to a very real and visceral problem that they have in their business. So first, that exists, like my story about the owner operator that called me directly. However, the vast majority of the engagements or customers that we add come through Microsoft Dynamics partners. In fact, probably 95%. So to answer your question is, the Microsoft Dynamics ERP channel partners are really doing a good job, and they're seeing the same thing. I mean, the way ExpandIT goes to market is exclusively through Microsoft Dynamics ERP partners. So we know them well, and they also see this pain. So, they're trying, especially the consultants, they're trying to guide their customers to use the Microsoft Dynamics products as effectively as they can. And they see this gap. There's no doubt they do. And generally what happens is, it'll be often it's an existing user of Microsoft Dynamics ERP, or it's a net new customer that they're trying to acquire, sometimes from a competitive product. And it'll be very apparent to the partner that there's a gap. So what'll happen is as they get into their process of trying to, maybe they're trying to do an upgrade from Nav to Business Central, or GP to Business Central, or Dynamics Finance and Supply Chain Management, they'll see that there's a gap. And they'll see that it cannot be easily solved, inside, the core ERP solution. And it's at that point that they'll reach out to us. And that's why we do spend quite a bit of time and effort trying to educate the Microsoft Dynamics ERP partners and the consultants and sales people there, that we have a solution that can help them as well, help them help their customers. So the answer is, visceral problem. Customers are, not being shy about saying they're looking for a solution. But the Microsoft Dynamics channel partners, they get it. I mean, they've been doing this like us. Many of them are very mature in terms of, working with customers and partners for over, for a long time. So they're frequently reaching out to us saying, "Hey, we need some help." And, by the way, it's not easy, trying to solve all problems for your customers. It's hard for a Microsoft Dynamics partner to be an expert at everything, right? It's the range of problems that customers have is immense. They have complicated businesses, and they become real experts often in Microsoft Dynamics ERP, and it's hard for them to be an expert sometimes in knowing how to help a customer in the area of digital transformation related to their mobile workers. We can help them there, and that's often the value add that we bring to the table, is being experts in that area.
Yeah, I would think if nothing else, just knowing those interfaces, I absolutely agree with you that there's too much for the traditional Dynamics partner to be an expert in these days. But yet that challenge is real, and I think the demand is real, that they have to do something more than maybe they are accustomed to doing from 5, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when it comes to what their customers need and knowing. And I did want to ask me a bit about those interfaces, and knowing sort of what they absolutely should be able to at least appreciate, maybe talking a bit more specifically too. So like when you're talking about where sort of a Dynamics ERP and a field service solution should be sort of touching or should be, interchanging data, are there particular points that are, the most important or the most common that really make the two systems work the best together?
That's a good question. So I'd say the first thing is what customers want and what partners want is they want one source of data truth. And so what we've designed our system so that we don't replicate or duplicate data. So ERP products, whether they're on-premise or now predominantly in the cloud, there is one source of data. So there is one master file for customer and inventory and resources. There's one source of customer-specific pricing. What customers want and what partners have won is one source of that. So we don't replicate that. So first off, our solution does not replicate, it leverages or integrates to the ERP so that there's one source of truth and data. So that's the first thing that they want. But in order to make that happen, which is, I guess, really your question is that we have to have some points of intersection, right, with the ERP product. And so what we've realized is that the key points of intersection for us tend to be into either the projects or a jobs module in the ERP, and some different products call it different things, right? In Microsoft Dynamics Business Central, they call it the jobs module. In Dynamics Finance and Supply Chain Management, it's more of a projects module. And then there's also a module in both products called a service management module, which tends to be used for contract management, being able to track work against service items, creating service type contracts. So we integrate into both those modules. So our customers either have us integrate into one or both of those modules. And we have a standard integration into both of those. So that's the exciting thing, is that we've created that integration. It doesn't have to be recreated for every customer. Standard integration, it just works, and it's a deep integration so that when we're doing planning and scheduling, the customer's resources, their people, their equipment, when we do planning in our advanced planning tool, it's the resources, it's the people, it's the equipment that already have been pre-configured and set up in the ERP system. When we're doing work against a service item, those are the service items that have been created and already exist in the core ERP system. So to answer your question, we've learned you need to have one source of data, and our value proposition is having a deep integration that just works back into the ERP system, and we maintain that. So the other piece is that Microsoft's ERP products now are delivered in the cloud. They're continually being enhanced, modified, and improved. That's the value proposition of, I think, a customer buying a Microsoft ERP product. It's why Microsoft Dynamics partners have taken a bet on Microsoft, which is a great one. It's why we have as well. But what we do is we maintain that integration. So when Microsoft comes out with enhancements in their product, our integration just works. We maintain that integration, and it's been pre-built, and we support that. Mm-hmm. But anyway, to your point, those are the areas that we kind of integrate into the ERP.
You mentioned an example earlier of a call that came in for perhaps a very typical type of pain. Are there any other, examples coming out of the Microsoft space or just recent customer examples that might sort of illustrate some of the ways that deployments of ExpandIT's solution actually roll out or what the customers sort of end up experiencing?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because there is kind of a few kind of more. What I'm seeing is a lot of customers looking for rapid ROI, and I kind of hit on that before. So, what we're seeing now is customers are looking for, in many cases, a kind of best practices type solution. They see the benefit of a best practices financial solution from a product like, say, Business Central. They want the same for their field service. I mean, they're looking to put some consistency around their services practice. They're also looking to take risk out of their business, if you will. So I can highlight a great example is actually, something we're seeing more of right now. There's, Microsoft. There's a big base of Microsoft Great Plains and NAV or former Navision customers globally, and some of them are looking to upgrade. So I can tell you that recently had an instance where a customer was coming off a legacy Microsoft Dynamics solution. And for them, it was about how fast can I start using the product? They'd just gone live, in this case on Business Central. This was a water filtration, assembly, and installation company. So again, they're doing fabrication and some manufacturing in their facilities. And then they need to go install these water filtration systems and then do break fix service after the fact. But for them, I mean, they had a dying problem in that they had upgraded and they needed to replace their old system. So, they couldn't spend, 6 months waiting to implement a product, and they certainly didn't have a 6-figure budget. They needed something quick, they needed it fast, and they needed guaranteed to work. So we're seeing a lot of those where they're coming to us, and they really like the appeal of our value proposition is that we can help you simplify your field services organization, and we can get it in and get you using it in under 6 weeks. So, that was one that kind of want to highlight. And, they started off with a team of, about, I'd say, 20 technicians in one division, and then they're rolling it out to other divisions. It's possible they may come back to us and say that they want some tweaks or modifications, but they really like the fact that they could get started with a fixed scope solution, because often, people don't really know what they need. They don't know what changes, if any, they ever want to make until they use our product first, maybe for 6 to 12 months. So, that's kind of one that I kind of excited to highlight. The other thing I liked about that one as well is that they were using both the projects module for installation type work, because their installations of new projects might take, several weeks to go and install a large water filtration system at a site. And then they're using the service management module to go and do kind of the break fix work after the fact, because they have services contracts and preventive maintenance contracts against specific, service type items out in the field. So they're using both the projects or the jobs module to do the installations and the service for the break fix. So, that was one that I thought was great. And I think the most exciting part is that we were able to kind of get them live in just over a month. So, that's something that is, I think a bit unique about our value proposition.
Interesting. And that just makes me think of sort of one of the big challenges, I think, across this particular space is when it comes to Microsoft business applications. There's, like you said, there's these organizations that are upgrading or modernizing from what's now considered legacy, GP or NAV to a Business Central, or maybe even a supply chain management, D365 supply chain management product. And then there are sort of net new organizations coming into the Microsoft business application space who are being told different kinds of, or who are expecting different kinds of outcomes, whether it's really rapid deployment, like you're saying, or still some of the more traditional, very complex deployments, depending on, the needs and the type of solution. So I imagine you must be still seeing those various kinds of needs. And I don't know, do you see one winning out or being more important or particular, or maybe do you see it as you look to the future, do you have any sort of expectations?
Yeah, that's a really great question. It's one that we think about a lot, because you're right, there really is a big variety, right? So there are, Microsoft Dynamics has some, large customers that are looking, they're attracted to Microsoft Dynamics ERP and some of the partner competencies because they have some uniqueness to their business, and perhaps they want to use the Microsoft tools to be able to maintain competitive advantage. So we do see that there are large users of Microsoft Dynamics ERP and Microsoft technology that sometimes want to do it their own way and want to use Microsoft tools and ISV solutions like ours to maintain competitive advantage. So we do see that. However, we're seeing now that there's more customers than there used to be that are really looking for a best practices type approach, like the one I talked about before. They want to, the fact is we've been working with services-based companies for over 20 years. And although there are some uniquenesses, there's actually a lot of similarities with respect to how services companies and installation companies work. I highlighted that before. They take an inbound inquiry. They have to schedule the right people and equipment and tools to the right location and get them there as quickly as possible. And then when that person is out in the field, they need to do their work as fast as possible and hopefully have the right equipment and parts when they're out there. They're often working as teams. They have to capture information real time. They have to fill out compliance reports, and we've seen that with COVID especially, real time. And then that information has to get back into the system for some sort of approval and then ultimately for invoicing. And then I guess the third part is customers want to be part of that cycle as well. It used to be everybody, you'd call in if you needed a service or whatever. Now customers are expecting that they can go to a portal, and that's a realistic expectation. So our system needs to support that, where an end customer can go to a web portal, can be able to place a service call, in the evening, when it's convenient for them. They should be able to see the status of the work that's being done in the field, when it's scheduled. They should be able to see when their technician is going to arrive. They should be able to see those compliance reports as they're filled out real time. So there has been a change for sure, in that people's expectations for the service experience have dramatically increased in the last 10 years. And tools like ours and others need to be able to support that rising kind of expectation level. And then, what I said before, a lot of customers are expecting it to be implemented in weeks, not months or years. And they're expecting it to be done at a fixed price and with a fixed scope to reduce risk. So that's been the big change. Higher expectations and in terms of product functionality, but also higher expectations in terms of kind of the ROI and the value that they get for their investment.
Yeah, the challenges just keep coming, I suppose, in terms of delivering that. But very interesting stuff. Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. This is a fascinating topic, one that doesn't have any sign of slowing down. So I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
This has been another episode of the MSDW podcast. My thanks to John Macdonald for joining me. To learn more about ExpandIT's solutions, visit them at expandit.com. And that's it for this episode. If you want to get in touch, please reach out to me by email, jgumpert@msdynamicsworld.com. And please follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn for all of our updates. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World, signing off.